Have you ever stopped to think that maybe the anxiety you feel is not a disease, but rather the silent desperation of a part of you that is being suffocated? What if I told you that what you call anxiety is actually the deafening scream of your soul, desperately trying to wake you up from a life that isn't yours? Anxiety has become the silent epidemic of our era. Millions of people around the world wake up every day with that weight on their chest, that feeling that something terrible is about to happen, even when everything seems fine. We rush to doctors' offices, seek diagnoses, swallow medications, try breathing techniques. And all of this can help, yes, but rarely does anyone stop to ask the most important question: why is my soul screaming? Carl Jung, the brilliant Swiss psychiatrist who dared to dive into the depths of the human unconscious, had a revolutionary view on this. For him, much of our psychological suffering doesn't come from a random chemical imbalance or a failure in our nervous system. It comes from something much deeper and at the same time simpler: the betrayal of ourselves. We live in a society that teaches us from an early age to be everything except who we really are. We've been conditioned to wear masks, to perform roles, to fit into expectations we never questioned. You became the obedient child, the efficient employee, the perfect spouse, the available friend. But somewhere on this journey of becoming what others expected, you left behind who you really are. And that's where the problem lies. Because your essence, what Jung called the self, doesn't simply disappear because you ignored it. It remains there, knocking on the door of your consciousness, demanding to be heard. And when you don't listen, it screams, and you call that scream anxiety. Think about your daily routine. How many of your choices are genuinely yours? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you swallowed your words, your dreams, your true desires because they didn't fit the narrative you built to please others? Each time you betray yourself, each time you choose external approval instead of your internal truth, you feed an invisible dragon that lives inside you. Jung realized something that modern psychology often ignores. We are not just rational beings that can be fixed with cognitive adjustments. We are symbolic, mythological, ancestral beings. We carry within us not just our personal history, but thousands of years of human history, what he called the collective unconscious. And this unconscious doesn't accept lies. It doesn't accept that you live a false life. When you spend years, decades perhaps, living an existence that doesn't reflect who you really are, something inside you begins to rot. You can keep up appearances on the outside, can continue smiling in photos, might even have success according to the world's standards. But inside, you're slowly dying, and anxiety is the warning signal, the fire alarm that won't stop ringing. It's not there to destroy you, it's there to save you. But here's the question that changes everything. What happens when you finally decide to listen? The truth is that most of us are afraid of our own soul. It seems strange to say this, but it's real. We're afraid of what we'll find if we really look inside. We're afraid that if we take off all the masks, there'll be nothing left. Or worse still, we're afraid of discovering that what we really want, what we really are, is unacceptable to the world we've built around us. Imagine a successful executive who, deep down, always wanted to be an artist. Or a dedicated mother who feels she completely lost her identity in the process of caring for others. Or a young person who chose a safe career to please their parents, but feels like they're dying a little each day in that office. These people aren't anxious by chance. They're anxious because they're living divided lives, fragmented lives. Jung called this neurosis, and for him, all neurosis was essentially a suffering of the soul that hadn't found its meaning. You can't cure anxiety just by calming the symptoms. It's like taking the batteries out of the smoke detector while your house is on fire. The alarm stops, but the problem continues. True healing comes when you have the courage to ask the question everyone avoids. Who am I really when no one is looking? What is my soul begging me to do or become? This journey of self-knowledge isn't comfortable. Jung knew this better than anyone. He himself went through periods of profound psychological crisis, confronting his own internal demons. But it was in those moments of darkness that he discovered his greatest truths. If what I'm saying has already started to stir something inside you, if you're already feeling that familiar discomfort that comes when truth knocks on the door, then you need to continue with me on this journey. Subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will show you not just the problem, but the path to your liberation. Jung's great discovery was the concept of the shadow. Everything you reject in yourself, everything you consider unacceptable, weak, shameful, or wrong, doesn't disappear. It gets stored in your unconscious, forming what he called the shadow. And here's the cruel paradox. The more you try to be perfect, the more you try to fit into the standards of what's right and acceptable, the larger and more powerful your shadow becomes. It's like trying to hold a ball underwater. The more force you use to keep it submerged, the more energy it accumulates. And when you least expect it, it explodes to the surface with devastating force. Anxiety often is this constant pressure of trying to keep everything you reject in yourself locked in the basement of your psyche. Think about the amount of energy you spend daily maintaining this facade. Energy to not show anger when you're furious, energy to not demonstrate vulnerability when you're broken, energy to not pursue your dreams because they seem irrational or selfish, energy to not question the structures of your life because that would mean admitting you may have taken the wrong path. This internal war is exhausting, and anxiety is the symptom of this battle you wage with yourself every day. Jung said something profound. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, healing doesn't come from becoming more perfect, more positive, more productive. Healing comes from integrating what you've rejected, from embracing your totality, including the parts you consider defective. This doesn't mean acting destructively or selfishly. It means recognizing that you're human, complex, contradictory. It means stopping spending all your energy trying to be an edited version of yourself and starting to live from your true center. Now comes the part that can completely change your perspective. Most people look at anxiety as an enemy to be defeated. Jung proposed something radically different. What if anxiety is a messenger? What if it's trying to show you exactly where you need to grow? Every anxious symptom has something to say. That social anxiety might be screaming that you're living too much for others' approval. That performance anxiety might be showing that you've built your entire identity on external achievements. That feeling that something bad is going to happen might be the true premonition that if you continue on this path, you're going to lose yourself completely. Jung believed that the psyche has innate wisdom, a natural tendency toward healing and wholeness. He called this the process of individuation, the path by which a person becomes who they really are, integrating all parts of themselves. But this process requires something our modern society hates: courage to dive into the unknown, to question everything, to possibly lose relationships, status, and security in the name of authenticity. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you've always been afraid of confrontation, always avoided conflicts at any cost. This might be a quality in certain contexts, but it can also mean that you swallow your truths, allow others to disrespect you, live accumulating resentments that you don't even consciously recognize. Anxiety comes as a signal. You need to integrate your capacity to say no, to establish boundaries, to defend your space. The anger you've repressed won't disappear on its own. It will transform into physical symptoms, into chronic tension, into irrational explosions, or into a diffuse anxiety that seems to have no cause. The solution isn't to take a medication to make the anxiety shut up. The solution is to listen to what it's trying to tell you and have the courage to make the necessary changes in your life. This might mean changing careers, ending toxic relationships, establishing boundaries you've never had the courage to establish, or simply starting to live according to your real values, not the values that were imposed on you. But there's an even deeper secret that few know. Something Jung discovered in his years of clinical practice and personal exploration. Anxiety isn't just about you as an isolated individual, it's also about your disconnection from something greater. Jung realized that in the modern era, we've lost our sense of connection with the sacred, with mystery, with that which transcends the small ego and its daily concerns. In the past, people had rituals, myths, symbols that connected them with something greater than themselves. There was a sense of belonging, not just to a community, but to a meaningful cosmos. Today, we live in a spiritual vacuum. We've replaced myth with technology, ritual with routine, mystery with information. And something inside us is starving. Existential anxiety, that nameless fear that haunts you in silent nights, comes from this lack of connection with a greater purpose. When your life is only about paying bills, reaching goals, accumulating things, there's a fundamental emptiness that no external achievement can fill. Jung said that the encounter with the self, the deepest center of our being, was essentially a spiritual experience. Not necessarily religious in the conventional sense, but spiritual in the sense of connecting us with something that transcends our small self. When you live disconnected from this center, when your life is all lived on the surface, you inevitably feel lost, anxious, groundless. The question then becomes, what has true meaning for you? Not what you think should have meaning, not what society says is important, but that which makes your soul vibrate, that for which you'd be willing to suffer, that which makes you feel alive even in difficult moments. That's your truth. And pursuing it isn't selfishness. It's the only way for you to become whole, to integrate all the parts of who you are, to finally silence that internal scream you've been calling anxiety. So here's the final revelation, the truth Jung knew, and that can free you right now. You don't need to wait to be healed to start living authentically. Actually, it's the opposite. You begin to heal when you begin to live authentically. Anxiety begins to diminish not when you defeat it, but when you stop betraying yourself. Every small act of honesty with yourself is an act of healing. Every time you choose your truth instead of external approval, you're integrating your shadow. Every time you honor your boundaries, your real desires, your genuine needs, you're walking in the direction of individuation. It's not an easy path. Jung never promised it would be, but it's the only path that leads to real peace, the kind that doesn't depend on external circumstances, but that comes from being in alignment with who you really are. Anxiety is not your enemy. It's the alarm that's trying to wake you from a dream that has become a nightmare. It's the voice of your soul saying, you deserve more than this. You deserve to live a life that is truly yours. So stop right now and ask yourself this question. If I had only 1 year to live, what would I change immediately? That answer will tell you everything you need to know about where you're betraying your soul. And if you had the courage to get this far, to face these uncomfortable truths, then you've already taken the first step. You've already started to wake up. Now the question is, what are you going to do with this awakening? If this message touched something deep in you, if you feel you need to revisit these ideas, like this video so more people can find it, share it with someone you know is stuck, who is suffering silently, who is calling anxiety what is actually the cry of their own soul. And subscribe to this channel because we'll continue exploring these profound truths that our society prefers to ignore. In the comments, tell me, in what area of your life do you feel you're betraying your truth? Where is your soul screaming the loudest? Let's create a community of people brave enough to live authentically, Until the next journey.